Hey there. Thank you so much for making Obi-Wan a part of your 4th of July weekend. Happy 4th of July. We hope that you've had such a great time, whether that's with your family, whether that's hanging out with friends. Even if you're enjoying a relaxing weekend to yourself, we hope it is relaxing and you're having a great time. If you don't know who I am yet, my name is Kris. I'm one of the pastors here, and it's my privilege to share with you today. I still remember the time where someone called me up, and as we were starting the conversation, it was just a normal conversation, and as it went along, this person started to share with me some really deep, dark struggles that they were going through. And it had to do, their struggle stemmed from their financial situation they were in. They were really, really struggling, and they were barely making it. There was times that they were getting behind, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I think that's one of the reasons that they were so discouraged. It wasn't for lack of trying, and it started to affect them so deeply, so much, that it started to mess with the person's health. They weren't eating as well. They couldn't sleep well. And they just dropped this huge, deep struggle on me. I have a question for you. Have you ever been there where someone reveals a struggle, or maybe a really deep struggle is dropped on you? What do you do in those situations? See, I believe that one of the reasons our purpose, our good work is exciting to us is because we want to make a difference. God wants us to make a difference too. And so I want to talk with you today about some steps that you can take to make a difference. Hear this, even if it's just in the life of one. Nehemiah was right in the middle of his purpose, his good work. He was rebuilding the wall for his people's city, but he was about to hear from various people about how much struggle they were going through. A bomb was about to be dropped on Nehemiah. Let's peek into their conversation to see what they were going through. Nehemiah 5 says this. You can follow along on the screen. Others were saying, "We're being forced to sell our fields, vineyards, and homes. We have to do it to buy grain. There isn't enough food for everyone." Are you starting to hear the desperation and struggle? Still others were saying, "We have to borrow money. We needed it to pay the king's tax on our fields and vineyards. We belong to the same family lines as the rest of our people. Our children are as good as theirs." Hear this, could you imagine? "But we've had to sell them off as slaves. Some of our daughters have already been made slaves, but we can't do anything about it. That's because our fields and vineyards now belong to others." And hear this part. This is so important. Then Nehemiah says this, "I heard them when they cried out." If you're going to be someone that within your purpose, your good work, makes a difference even in the life of one person, number one in your notes, you might want to put this down. See the difficulty and pain. Nehemiah was just presented with many difficulties, but you notice that last part, he said, I heard them. I have a question for you today. What do you see? Do you see beyond yourself? As he did in chapter 1, Nehemiah saw beyond himself. And as we've talked about already, when talking about finding or rediscovering your purpose, we mentioned earlier in the series that one of the things you could do is ask this question. Man, what bothers me? But if we're not careful, we can be so stuck in our own worlds that we don't see anything, which never allows us to be bothered by it. If we're not careful, we can develop a perspective problem called me, myself, and I. Have you ever met that problem before? Have you ever encountered that problem before? I'm sure that you have, I have, we all have. And when we encounter that problem, our focus is too narrow because we're only focused on ourselves. If you stay focused on yourself long enough, you can become tone deaf to the pain of others. Now, don't hear me wrong. You've got to take care of yourself. Self-care is important. It's important to be healthy, to be at a healthy place and space for yourself and others. That said, we can be so stuck in our own worlds that we don't see beyond ourselves, or we become tone deaf to the pain of others. Listen to this verse that I hope gives a healthy balance to what I was just sharing. It says this in Philippians 2. It says, none of you, notice how the Bible doesn't give any of us an out. It simply says, none of you should look out just for your own good. Each of you should also look out for the good of others. This is such a cool statement from Philippians because it's such a healthy balance of a well-lived, purposeful life. It doesn't condemn us for looking out for our own good. It just says, look out for the good of others also. Essentially, take care of yourself, but see beyond yourself. Now, there are many difficulties out there, but the question is, do you see them? The kid that goes hungry, the person stuck in poverty, violence, hate, the racial tension, the tension with cops, the individual caught in abuse, and so on. There are so many examples. You fill in the blank. Here's some that may not be as obvious. Maybe a family seemingly has much, but their family life is empty and their family life is just falling apart. Maybe someone has success, but on the inside, they're just dying inside because of depression or loneliness. Maybe the child has the clothes, the food, and all the goods, but they rarely see their parents, which leads them to feeling unimportant, lonely, and unwanted. Maybe the teenager has all the newest fashions and electronics, but is longing for someone to accept them for who they are. One of the greatest problems people face is hopelessness. When our difficulty or pain, or someone's difficulty or pain goes on long enough, hopelessness starts to set in. That was what was happening with the person that I was talking to. It was happening for so long. They did not see any hope. They were trying. It never seemed like it was getting better. And so hopelessness was setting in. And can I tell you, especially if you've been there, you're going to resonate with what I'm about to say. Hopelessness can be very painful. Do you see it? Do you hear the cries of the hopeless? I don't know about you, but my favorite superhero growing up was Superman. Love me some Superman. Superman is awesome. You have the movies. He has a great character, great integrity. He has cool superpowers. Man, he's just been around for a long time. He's there to help people. And you remember, especially if you've seen the show or the movies or even in the comics, something bad is starting to happen. Supes can either see it or he can hear it, whether it's the cat stuck in the tree or the whole city with all the people are going down, and you know what's coming next. The music starts, dun 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 dun, and you know what's happening. He's starting to look around. He's looking for the phone booth. He's looking for a place to hide, and then he gets to that phone booth, gets to that place to hide, and the music starts to amp up. Dun 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 dun. Yes, Superman to the rescue. It's no longer Clark Kent. It is now Superman. Some of you are wondering on the other side of the screen, did this guy record this in the winter, or why is he wearing a long-sleeve shirt in the summer? It's so that I could show you the Superman shirt, baby. Anyway, there was two cool powers that Supes had among many cool powers. One is X-ray vision. Because of his X-ray vision, Soups is able to see things that others can't. The other power is super hearing, which allows him to hear things that others can't hear. Now, I get it. You're thinking, I'm not a superhero. Superman isn't real, so this isn't something I can do. But here's the cool thing. God sees and hears everything. Everything. He hears all the difficulty and pain. I get it again. I'm not God. He may be able to do it, but I can't. I hear you. I get that. But listen to this verse that I hope will give you a new perspective. 1 Corinthians 3 says this. Don't you realize that all of you together are the temple of God? And listen to this. This is important. And that the Spirit of God lives in you. Yes, in you. If you're a Christ follower, the Spirit of God lives inside of you. He's the one that can help you see beyond yourself so that you can see the difficulty and pain that people are facing. If we would just ask God to open our eyes, God, help me see. If we would ask God to unlock our ears, God, help me to not be tone deaf. He will show us the difficulty and pain that people face every single day. He's the one that can help us remain aware and mindful to the people that are around us. You want to make a difference, even in the life of just one, because one is so important. See the difficulty and pain. As we saw earlier, some were having heavy burdens placed on them by others. I'll just remind you of one that I mentioned earlier. Could you imagine being so desperate that you felt like the only recourse you had was to sell off your kids? Man, what a desperate situation. Let's see how Nehemiah would respond once he saw and heard the difficulty and pain. In Nehemiah 5, it says this, and I was very angry when I heard what they were saying. I thought it over for a while. Number 2, if you're going to be someone that within your purpose, within your good work, makes a difference even in the life of one, number 2, simply give a rip. Give a rip. Many see or hear the difficulty. The question is, will we give a rip? Will we have compassion for others? I remember when my daughter was really little, Robin and I were play fighting. I don't know if I was tickling her or whatever we were doing, and Robin screamed out, "Help, help!" And we really were play fighting. No conspiracy theories here, okay? But we were play fighting, having a good time. And as Robin was starting to scream out, "Help, help, help!" Corey started crying. Corey started crying for her mother. Now, being the good parents that we were, we wanted to test out if she'd do the same thing for me. And so Robin got on top of me, and we started playing around, and I started saying, "Help, help." Do you know what she did? She started laughing. So she's laughing when daddy is in trouble, but crying when mommy is in trouble. You could tell who she was who she gave a rip about. In all seriousness, do we give a rip? Do we have compassion for others? Nehemiah cared. And as we'll see, he used his anger to do good and help others. What's your response when you see difficulty? Is it, you know what? They deserve it anyways. If we're not careful, indifference can creep in. And it can be very, very dangerous. But here's the thing. How would you want someone to respond to you if you were struggling? Even if it was your fault. Would you want someone to say, well, live with it. You deserve it anyways. Or would you want someone to come alongside you and say, hey, I'm here to help. How can I help? If you have kids, how would you want someone to respond to them amidst their struggle in times of need? How would you want someone to respond to your family if they were in trouble? Maybe it's not indifference, but it's, I can't do anything. This is too big for me. I'm just one person. Someone else is going to have to do it. I don't have time. It will cost too much. I'm too overwhelmed. I'm afraid. Or is it, God, help me to care. I want to make a difference, so give me the compassion I need. Give me the compassion I need to do something about it so that I can make a difference. Not only can God help you see and hear the pain in others, He can help you give a rip about the person. Again, He's inside of you. He's inside of us. He can give you the compassion and love for others that you need to help others. Because when you have compassion for others, it can take away the indifference. Fears can be eroded. Our overwhelming feelings can be washed away. God's compassion can take away the excuses and drive us to do something about it so that we can help others and make a difference for them. And here's what's cool about God. He cares about you and the person that's going through the difficulty. So He has this crazy way, if we let Him, He has this way of helping us stay healthy and also helping us move beyond ourselves so that we don't accidentally succumb to me, myself, and I syndrome like I talked about earlier. You want to make a difference, even in the life of just one? Give a rip. Nehemiah was led to do something. I'd encourage you to read all of Nehemiah 5 to see everything he did, but let's just take a peek at something that he did. And just so you know, Nehemiah stood up for his people that were being mistreated. That's what we're about to see. So he went to the people that were mistreating the people that came to him earlier, and he says this in Nehemiah 5. So I continued, what you're doing isn't right. Shouldn't you show respect for our God? Shouldn't you live in a way that will keep our enemies from saying bad things about us? I'm lending the people money and grain. So are my relatives and my men. But we must stop charging interest. Give the people's fields back to them. Give them back their vineyards, olive groves, and houses. Do it right away. Give everything back to them. Also, give them back the 1% on the money, grain, fresh wine, and olive oil you have charged them. Like I said, Nehemiah stood up for people who were being mistreated. But it didn't stop there. It cost him because he lent people money and grain so that they could survive. He even did more. Again, I'd encourage you this week to read all of chapter 5 to see what Nehemiah did to help others. Number 3, if you're going to be someone that within your good work, your purpose, that you make a difference, even in the life of just one. Because like I've said, one person is so important to God. Number 3, be a solution. Be a solution. Pastor Julian so awesomely talked about that a couple weeks ago, about being people of solution. Let's be a solution. Now, I want to make a couple things clear. I believe in focus. Focus helps us push through. It also helps us complete our good works, our purposes. It also prevents us from starting 18 things but not finishing any of them. Any of you know what I mean? I'm sure all of us have been there at times. Nehemiah had a good work to do. It was to rebuild the wall. If he was going to finish, he had to focus. I also get that we have limits. We can't do everything, and God knows that. Sometimes the best thing we can do is focus, realize our limits, and graciously say no. That said, we have to be so careful not just to say no just because we didn't think it was a part of our original good work or purpose or a part of our original plan. By actually doing it, we may find out that it's part of our purpose. We just didn't know it yet. Nehemiah could have been like, this is, he could have just been like trying for words here saying, this was not a part of my original plan. I came here to build a wall. I can't do this too. Please know I'm actually trying to help you and others by building this wall, but all of this other drama, I don't have time for this. You'll need to take care of this on your own or find someone else. I'm only one person. Maybe a big portion of your purpose is centered around your career. It doesn't mean you can't help someone else win at life too. Maybe you're passionate about helping others win as parents. That doesn't mean that you can't help a person who is single, who is struggling to find themselves in this world. Maybe a big part of your good work is to parent your kids well. That doesn't mean that you can't help other kids too. Maybe a part of your purpose is to be the best that you can be for your family. That doesn't mean that you can't help another person be the best for their family. Maybe you love seeing people win at finances. It doesn't mean you can't bring the hope of Jesus to someone that's not struggling financially. You see, Nehemiah stayed focused on the wall, and he helped the people that came to him. He saw the difficulty. He heard the pain. He gave a rip, and it led him to be a solution. Here's another thing that I think we struggle with. There's so much difficulty and pain out there that I think it can overwhelm us. Again, we can't solve every problem or help every person, but we can do something. I love what Pastor Andy Stanley says about this. He says, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. You might want to put that down. I'm going to do for one what I wish I could do for everyone. I love that. Feed one kid. Give your time to one teenager. Help one family. Share the hope of Jesus with one person. Start with one. Take a step. Take a couple steps. Help them and see where it goes. Here's another thing I think we struggle with when it comes to being a solution. Like, who, me? I can be a solution? I believe that we often we believe the lie that we don't have what it takes, or we believe that we're not enough. I don't make enough. I don't have it all together. I was born on the wrong side of the block. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I don't even have a bed. I struggle myself. I'm not that smart. I'm just one person. I'm nothing special. The list could go on. Do you see a pattern? We often look at our own limitations. To finish the story that I started of the person who is going through a deep struggle financially, what I haven't mentioned yet is that we were struggling as well. It's like, how can we help? Well, I didn't say that to him, but how can we help? We're struggling too. In fact, the person never asked for help from us. They just shared the struggle. Now, please hear me. I don't pretend to pass the test on this every time. Sometimes I fail very miserably. But in this situation, we wanted to be a part of the solution, so we helped him out even amidst our own struggle. I share this because we often think things like, man, I'm barely making it myself. How can I help? I don't even have myself together. How can I help someone else put themselves together? I'm struggling with my own issues. How can I help someone else with theirs? Again, self-care is important, and it's good to be at a healthy place when we help others. That said, God couldn't use anyone if he couldn't use anyone that didn't struggle. In fact, oftentimes when we're struggling, it helps us identify with others' difficulty and pain. At least to a certain extent, Robin and I identified with what this person was going through because we were struggling too. Here's even another thing that I think we struggle with when it comes to being a solution. I just want to help us push beyond the limitations and the excuses and trust God that he can help us. But here's another one. I think we can a lot of times base our decisions off of our limitations. But guys, we have a God that's on our side, and he's the God of solutions. He can help us be a solution even when we're struggling, even when we feel that we don't have what it takes, even when we feel that we're not enough or don't even have enough. He's on your side, ready to step in and help. He can give you the strength and smarts to be a solution. And guess what? If there's something he knows that you're lacking to help you be a solution, he can give that to you. Or he can send someone to your life that has that strength. And he can send it right when he knows that you need it so that you can accomplish it. Sometimes, even if we don't have everything in front of us, sometimes he just wants us to take a first step or to take a few steps in trust before he gives us a full solution. Can I encourage you? Don't let limitations stop you. Trust God. Live. I shared this last week. Live as if he'll help. Let your purpose, not what you think your ceiling is, be one of the determining factors. You know, I mentioned earlier that my favorite superhero growing up was Superman. He's still my favorite superhero. And obviously Superman has been around for a long time, so there's a lot of history around Superman. But in one of the most recent movies, Superman was asked what this logo actually means. And he said it means hope. Can I encourage you? Have you ever looked at your purpose, your good work that way? That if I would just see the difficulty and pain, if I decide to give a rip, if I decided to be a solution, that my good that I do for just even one other person, that the purpose that I'm set out to do, maybe just for one other person, that it could actually give them hope. That it could actually give them the hope of Jesus. Man, isn't that what our lives as Christ followers, if we are Christ followers, isn't that what our lives are supposed to be a reflection of? Showing other people the hope of Jesus. That we're like living, breathing, walking advertisements. We might not have the logo on our shirt, but people don't need the logo because they're like, man, there's something in that person. This person's giving me the hope. I wonder what that is. It's the hope of Jesus. Have you ever thought that the good works I do, the purpose that I set out to do, while it could do many, many different things, and while it could help many, many different people, could it ultimately bring someone to the hope of Jesus? How could you make a difference in someone else's life if you saw the difficulty and pain? If you saw beyond yourself, if you decided to stop being tone deaf and just crank up your ears a little more, God, help me to see and hear. What difference could you make if you continued to give a rip about others? How could you be a part of someone else's life changing for the better, maybe just even one, because you decided to be a solution? Let's pray. God, we thank you so much that you decided that we, the one, was worth it. I'm so thankful for that, God, that you decided that I was worth it. And so you were willing to do something about it. And I pray for everyone watching today that you would show them how worth it making a difference in the life of one can be. Would you show them or help them to hear the cries of the people that are hopeless? Would you lead them to someone, whether it's in their family, at their workplace, in their city, at their gym, at their place of hobby, in the grocery store? I don't know, God. But would you show them? Would you help them to see the pain and difficulty? Would you help them to give a rip and have compassion, God? Would you help them to have the courage to be the solution? I pray for all of my friends that you'd help them to have the courage and the boldness to be a solution for others, to make a difference, even if it's just in the life of one. Help them to see their face, God. Help them to care. And some of you watching, maybe even if it's just one or two, again, God cares about the one. Maybe you're like, wow, I'm realizing today that I'm that one that Jesus came for. I'm that one that Jesus went to the cross for. I'm the one that Jesus executed his good work for. He went to the cross for me. He died for me. He was raised again for me. And Jesus, today, God, I ask you, I give my life to you today, God. I ask you to forgive me. And Jesus, I will follow you today. And God, for all of my friends in the room, give them the courage. Lord, if there's someone struggling today, be there for them. Self-care is important. Show them how, God. Give them comfort. Show them that you're there for them too. Show them that you have solutions for them too. But God, show them how to be a solution in other people's lives as well. Because one person at a time, and we can make a difference for you and for others. Lord, we love you. We pray these things in your name. Amen.